Hail, Internet! It's Theron, it's Matt, the Dorklords. We are here revisiting Return of the King, the film.
Oh, yeah.
All kinds of
I'm wearing my shirt
accolades.
in honor.
Oh, yeah. I like it, sir. I like it. And obviously, this is of the trilogy. This is the one that kind of, got the bump at the Academy Awards from the fact that the Fellowship of the Ring was so good and Two Towers was so good, and then this was so good.
Yep.
So it won 11 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Score. We'll talk about the music, but it won for Annie Lennox's Into the West. So anyway, it won a whole bunch of awards, and deservedly so. Yeah. So this is the one of the trilogy that you and I actually got to see together.
Oh, true. Even though it won our first time together, but yeah, we did see it together.
Right. We didn't see it opening night together, correct. But this was like weeks later, and so we went to see Return of the King because, of course, there was a memorable experience regarding some of our fellow moviegoers.
Well, clearly it was obviously much later than the film had been released, so it was probably March, I would say, because there were only two parties in the group. You and me kind of sitting a little towards the back, and then this other party in the front.
Yeah. So there was a... It was a family of, I think it was 4. I think there was the mom, dad, and 2 kids.
Little kids.
Yeah, kids are like, I don't know, 6, 8.
Six-ish?
Yeah. So, and I know, like, right away, like, before the movie started, they had the whole snack pack going. They had the big popcorn, they had the 72-ounce Coke, which I always thought was weird because it's like, those were like, if you buy the 72-ounce, you get a free refill. And you're like, oh, do I need that for 72 ounces? And they're starting a 4-hour, marathon, and they're going to be drinking 72 ounces of Coke. Like, good luck. Anyway, so they do their thing. Awesome. Family's enjoying it. But somewhere in the middle of the movie, they finish that round of snacks. And so Dad sends the little kids off to get more snacks. And so, of course, we're sitting there in this basically empty theater, and we see them like walk off, and we're watching the movie. And then kids come back. But I think it is when it's in Shelob's lair. And so Frodo is lost, and he shows the light, the phial of Galadriel, and there's that big kind of it's a shock moment. The music kind of swells, and Shelob is seen. And at that moment, there's the little girl. She's got the refill 72-ounce Coke.
And I knew this was coming. I don't know if you did. I knew it was coming.
It was a...
I was watching. I knew it was coming.
Put it this way.
Go ahead.
This moment actually trumped what was happening on the screen, because she gets scared, as you would. It was like she's like, ah! And she drops a completely full 72-ounce Coke into her dad's lap. And so he's like, ah! And like, there's this little mini explosion in front of us of like the family going, oh God, look, clean up the napkins. And it totally, just outshone what was happening on that scene.
Oh, we were laughing. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to be respectful, but
exactly, it was you could, if it had been a comedy scene, you couldn't have made it any better if you had choreographed it. So that happened, and it was great, and we were laughing hysterically, but trying to politely laugh hysterically. And then, but what's great is that little follow-up was later, short time later, when Frodo has escaped Shelob's lair. He's now making his way up toward the Tower of Cirith, and Shelob's still there. You hear this great little quote from the girl. Now she's just dropped 72 ounces of Coke on her dad, but she has this little line where she's like, "Run, Frodo, run!" But the way she said it was just great. It really, I don't know. She could tell she was like totally into this moment, and like was very fearing for Frodo. And so anyway, so that's my great memory of watching this movie in a movie theater. Thank you, random family that provided a lot of entertainment during that movie. Just because I mentioned Annie Lennox's Into the West, I went back and checked, and yeah, there's actually a little. It echoes a scene from the movie. So the scene from the movie is Gandalf and Pippin are in Minas Tirith, kind of awaiting their demise in a way. You know,
the trolls got the big hammer.
Yeah, and Gandalf says, "Oh, this is not the end." You know, white shores, and he describes going to the west, and he does say basically all turns to silver glass. That line is actually from Tolkien's books, but it's also in the song Into the West, which is obviously about sailing west. So the song is about that, what Gandalf is describing, and it uses, in fact, some of the same language. So let's do what we've done here with the last couple of movies, which is start off with like just favorite, out and out, just favorite moments from this movie. There's a lot you can choose from, frankly.
Yeah, I know. It's actually hard to...
There's two I've got that are like... They're connected, and they're also just freaking awesome. But go for it.
Yeah, I don't know if I... Well, I mean, there's one that just stands out. When I saw it, I was just floored. I was just thinking, this is epic. And of course, probably yours too, if I remember. It's the lighting of the beacon.
Indeed, that's one of my two that I was talking about.
I remember sitting in the theater, just jaw drop, like, wow, they've really outdone themselves this time with the music.
Yeah, that's what makes it. It's the music. It's that White Tree theme, which also is played under one of my other amazing moments, which is Gandalf riding up the streets of Minas Tirith when he first come to Minas Tirith, and that music plays.
I love that too.
Like,
I've got some cool tie-ins for that one as well. Yeah, but
very good.
Yeah, both of those are up there.
But it makes you wonder, like, could you just put that music under, like, you know, me typing, and it'll be like, oh, that's amazing.
I used it for a climbing video once, so good.
Yeah. I've used it as well in comedy shows. But the music is perfect, but those scenes are great, and it shows in the case of the lighting of the beacons are lit. It shows
calls for aid,
and Rohan will answer. Peter Jackson had to make choices. Most of those choices he made in this trilogy are great. Some of them not so great. Most of them are great. This is a great choice because the beacons are lore in the books, but they are not currently in use. So in book, if you were just going specifically by the books, the beacons are just kind of like these unused relics of the past. Now, when in the book, when Gondor calls for aid, they use the symbol of the red arrow. It's like, the red arrow. All right, we got to go.
Yeah.
So,
which would you choose if you're a movie maker?
Right. He's going to choose the cinematic beacons, which looks great. Obviously, it's amazing. But it also, something I noticed as I was rewatching, which I did in the last couple of days, right before that scene, like maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes before that scene is when we see Minas Morgul send its beacon, right? It sends the green shaft of light, but there's a version of that in the books. It's the evil beacon and the good beacon, and they're both sending their respective armies to the same location for the same battle. I think that's a really cool tie to see, how it's a parallel, basically.
I love that scene too. The green light's great, and I love the fell beast perched on top of the battlements above the door. As the doors open, you see that shot straight down.
And the point of view, to the credit of the people of Gondor and, say, the Rohirrim and stuff, like, those people that are manning those beacons, I mean, those, like, probably for the lifetime of that guy, he has never lit the beacon. Like, it's been so many years, they're like, oh, fine, I'll do the beacon lighting duty. You know, you're like...
Yeah, but the first guys have a nice, comfortable place. You can see they've got like a mountain hut, and they've got it all ready to go. There's a couple of them. They're on the top of a peak. There's snow everywhere. Man, that guy's like suffering up there.
That is dedication.
A cold, miserable place to stay.
You can imagine, like one of those guys over the course of years, like,
I got to stay there 24/7. I mean, it could come at any moment.
Whatever. Just goes off and does whatever the hell he wants. But no, these guys are there within a few seconds. They're like, got it, go. So good on them. Well done.
When you've got music like that, I mean, what are you going to do? You've got it.
You got to respond. Exactly.
Speaking of the music, one interesting thing I noticed, and I noticed this right away, with that fantastic beacon lighting music. It's the Minas Tirith music, that dun 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 dun. And it's just played so heroically with the tremolo strings going, the big arpeggios and stuff, really loud. We've got the brass. So I saw it in the theater, and I was, like I said, I was floored. And then later on, I got the soundtrack before I'd seen the movie again, and I listened to that track many times. I had it pounded into my head. I loved it. Then I went back to the theater and I heard it again, and I noticed it's different. So what you hear on the soundtrack is different from what you hear in the movie. And I have to say, I prefer the soundtrack version. It's got a more powerful resolution to it. The big moment, the bun, dun, because that build-up lasts a long time. I don't know, 20 seconds, 25 seconds or something like that. And I don't know why it's different. I have no theory for that. I mean, it's not, doesn't have anything to do with the length. It's the... and it's not orchestration. It's the chords. It's the resolution. It's just more powerful. It's more traditional.
Right. So you're saying it's not an effect of having to play it while watching the footage. It's the same.
No, not at all.
The length is the same.
He changed the music a bit. I don't know why. I can't explain it. I would not have changed it. I'd love to ask that question. I have no theory.
All right, Howard Shore. I assume you're watching this, so in the comments, feel free to put your explanation. So another scene. It involves music. That is, I think, very powerful, is essentially, if you want to call it, Faramir's suicide mission, counterpoised with Pippin singing.
Sure. Yeah,
that the effect of that, the pathos of that.
It's very
moment.
Artistic. Yeah,
like
really well done.
You know, it's great too because he leads you up to this moment. You're like, oh boy, they're in real trouble. And then it ends before you see the violence. I think that's what's really cool. You see them shoot, but you're not seeing like a ton of death and destruction. You know the music stops, the arrows go. Like he showed you up to that moment, and then you fill in the gaps. It's great. It's really cool filmmaking, and very, 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 very effective.
And that doesn't draw from any theme. It's a brand new song. It's like a Hobbit song, I guess. I don't know, but it's kind of a sad one. They usually, like he was saying, we don't have songs for great halls and evil times, but it is a sad song.
That is something that this movie gets right in spades, which is it effectively portrays that underlying sadness of the trilogy. I feel like there is a sense of there's a sense of loss. There's a sense of time is passing people by, and even when everybody's victorious and you're like, yay, we won, there's still that, many partings. There's people leaving. The age is coming to an end. We'll talk about the faux endings, but then in those faux endings you got a lot of this, people are happy, but they're also there's this innate sadness, and the quality of the music I think really plays into that too. There's some genuinely just heartfelt moments among people that maybe in a lesser movie might just be like, we won, yay, cool, where's our medal, whatever. So kudos again to Peter Jackson for capturing that, because I think that is a major theme in Tolkien's work. Kudos. Some of that sadness you see, there's a line that some people have asked about. It's when Elrond gives the sword Enduril to Aragorn, and we see them talking in Elvish, and they say, I give hope to men, but leave none for myself. Right. That line is actually the last thing that Aragorn's mom ever said to him. She basically, that was it, and then she died eventually later, them not having seen each other again after that. And there's a little pun in it, actually, because basically she gave Aragorn to Elrond to raise for his safety, and they gave him a name to disguise him, which was Estel, which is hope. That's the name. That's his name in Elvish. So when she says, I give hope to men, she's basically saying, I gave you my son, hope, and I leave none for myself. Like, in other words, it was a big sacrifice to me to give over my son for the good of humankind, essentially, in a way, is what that's about.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, kind of a cool reference there. But
Some
they don't
serious
really
lore there.
They don't cover it a bunch in the movie. They just kind of move on. But that's what that's a reference to. So when Aragorn's taking that sword, he's remembering. You're right. This was that moment that his mom was talking about, in a way, right? This is the moment when you are going to step forward to become king. Take the sword.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Well, wow, that really sheds light on that scene. I appreciate that so much more now.
Hey,
and I love that scene. One of the reasons I got to talk music real quick.
Sure.
And I assume I don't really know how to categorize it, but I guess it's the sword music, because you hear it when Aragorn pulls the sword out. The bum 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 bum. Another time you hear that is scene that you mentioned. You said one of your favorite scenes was when Gandalf rides into Minas Tirith as he's going up the levels. You hear that great music. Before that, it cuts right from, and I love this scene too, I love the scene between Arwen and Elrond, when she comes back and has that conversation with him, and she decides, you know, what is it, the crownless again shall be king, that whole poem that she recites, beautiful, yep. Well, so well done.
I did a video on that poem, by the way. Anyway,
here we go.
Okay.
And you see those elven smiths forging the sword. It's playing that music, and then it cuts to the Minas Tirith music with Gandalf riding. That's wonderful. Now, I got something I noticed a while ago, a long time ago. You hear that music, that sword music, and that's the best I can categorize it now, because the only time I see it in Return of the King is with the sword.
Flame of the West.
You do hear it in Fellowship of the Ring, and it's in Lothlorien when Boromir, one of our favorites, is saying, "Have you ever seen it, Aragorn? The White Tower of Ecthelion." So next time you watch that scene, listen, you will hear the sword music.
Oh,
it's very soft.
Nice.
I don't know why they didn't use the Minas Tirith music. Maybe there's a connection there that Howard Shore was putting together. I'm not aware of. But this is interesting too. Back to Fellowship of the Ring again. We do see the city Minas Tirith, the city, early in the movie, right? When
right.
Gandalf goes there.
Gandalf's going to do research. Yeah.
That music is not the traditional Minas Tirith music. I don't know why it's not there. I wouldn't have thought that he didn't have it at the time, but it's the bum bum ba-dum, ba-dum, or something like that. And it's got the bassoons going and stuff.
Maybe the idea was, okay, we're not introducing Minas Tirith yet. Like, we're just going to show it. This is a city that Gandalf is going to explore, but we're not going to. This isn't where we introduce Minas Tirith. Maybe
that could be. So yeah, maybe they're not. Maybe they kind of are, because he doesn't mention what it is.
Right.
They're sort of hiding and you don't realize that, really. I mean, your average moviegoers, even if they've read Lord of the Rings, will not realize that, I don't think.
I think you're right.
That's where he is. But, I mean, it is the White City.
You could make the case, like, oh, that'd be cool to hear that theme. But maybe there was just a decision like, you know what, we'll introduce the theme later when we actually go to Minas Tirith. But also, just to say, that ride, when Gandalf is riding up the streets, it's also, not only is it just a really cool scene, it's just fun to see, but it also it gives you clues as to what's going to happen in the battle, right? This is the way that the enemy is going to be coming, and they're showing you kind of, you know, the set. You know, it serves a lot of purposes, but one of those is just to look really kick-ass. So yay for that.
Kick-ass, and it does.
Kick-ass.
Beautiful.
I'll mention one thing that doesn't actually work as well, that's related to, just made me think of it because it's Minas Tirith. It's maybe the one scene in this movie that I'm like, every time I see it, I kind of go, ugh. And that's when Gandalf beats the hell out of Denethor.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I first saw that, I was like, what? I'm much better with it nowadays than I was when I first saw it. It was like shocking to me. I'm like,
yeah, because it's, I mean, in terms of, has Denethor gone off his rocker? Is he saying the wrong things? Yes. Does Gandalf want to shut him up? Yes. But it's from the standpoint of how public it is. His
would
guards.
It be appropriate to do that? I mean,
right.
Even with his guards there, right? That's what I was thinking.
It's the guards. The guards are basically their job. I would say their first job. Remember, we hear the oath they had to take, like, you know, disloyalty with vengeance or whatever. So their job basically is, don't let someone walk up and knock the king unconscious. Or the steward unconscious. And sure, you're going to like, bang! And you're like, it feels wrong, like that probably wouldn't happen. I think I just would have put it in a different context where maybe the guards aren't there. Maybe they're, anyway, but it was just odd that they're just like, yeah, go. What do you need? You want to hit him? Go for it. Like,
right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a minor point, I think.
Yeah. It moves on and it's fine. And obviously there's like, Gandalf now is controlling the defenses instead of Denethor, who's given up.
And I do love that scene where he looks over the edge there and he sees the armies gathered. I'm not a big fan of the music there when it's playing those.
Okay. It's his suicide when
that's brilliant, yeah, and
he leaps off of Minas Tirith on fire and it just pulls back and you just see this, like, that's an amazing scene. Just the weight of that moment where the leader of the of this town is falling on fire while there's giant armies attacking the bit. Like, wow, you know, really, really cool. Yeah. Telling with pictures. Here's another scene that is interesting in that it's a choice, and it works in the context of the movie, but it is different from the book. It's basically the scene where Gollum frames Sam, right? So he like, sprinkles the crumbs.
I've got this flag. Yeah, I wanted to bring that up too. Go ahead.
So, you know, and Frodo sends him away, which was like, whoa. I mean, this
like,
doesn't happen this way
in the theater. But yeah.
Well, I remember when I first saw that, because then we cut back to eventually Sam walking down the stairs, and he falls down the stairs. Like, is he really gonna try walking all the way home? And like, what if Sam hadn't found the bread? Would he just have like, all right, going back to the Shire?
He would have turned back around,
right? He would have, right? But it's just funny, like, how far was he gonna go? Like, well, I guess Frodo didn't want me. Well, I got a long way to go. Okay. That may just
a few minutes of despondency there, that's all.
Yeah. So that scene does play out differently in the books. And in fact, in one of his letters, Tolkien places huge significance in this moment.
Yes, I am aware of this.
You are? Okay. I think I've actually done a video on this too. But anyway, this is Tolkien writing about what essentially is this scene from the books.
It's pivotal, according to Tolkien, yeah.
For me, perhaps the most tragic moment in the tale, that's what he writes, comes when Sam fails to note the complete change in Gollum's tone and aspect. His repentance is blighted, and all Frodo's pity is, in a sense, wasted. Shelob's lair became inevitable. And so that's just this huge moment. So in other words, from Tolkien's mind, he had written a passage where Gollum is actually feeling a sense of repentance and
very much so,
like kinship to Frodo. And then Sam wakes up, sees him touching Frodo, but actually kind of in
reverence.
Makes
a mistake, and
goes like calls him a villain.
Misinterprets it.
Yeah. Like, you know, says something like, "Where have you been to? Sneaking off and sneaking back, you old villain." Yeah. And in that moment, Gollum returns, essentially. Smeagol's like, all right, screw it. I'm going. Yeah. So it's interesting that choice, obviously in this moment, in the movie, he's full-on villain because he's framing Sam at that point. But
I would have thought that they would have been aware of this. I'm sure they were, given the level of research they did, for sure they are aware of that, but they made the choice to keep him completely in villain, not to give him that nuance, which I think is interesting because they gave the humans, like Faramir, a lot more nuance, but they
and I feel like he had the nuance in Two Towers. I feel like there's that, you know, when he's talking to himself, he being Gollum, you know, and Smeagol are like, oh, you know, whatever, leave now and never come back. That's this moment when he's kind of appealing to his good side. But then by the end of Two Towers, when we see that both sides of him are in agreement that they should take him to Shelob, I think starting with that moment, we don't see a lot of non-villainy, essentially, inside. He's fallen. And then, of course, in this movie, when Frodo announces, I'm trying to destroy the ring, that he's already in villain mode, but if he wasn't already, he becomes villain mode then, because he didn't realize, it never occurred to him that Frodo would try to destroy the ring, much like Sauron doesn't think of it. And so when Frodo announces, like, wait, what? I'm leading you so that you can destroy it? That's when we see him, I must attack you and bite your finger off. Well, that's later, but it's just an interesting little difference there. You know, one of the more notable differences, perhaps, between books and movie.
I have to say, I like the. I love the Gollum and Frodo and Sam scenes in Two Towers as well, but I think they're excellent. I could say that those are my favorite scenes. The scenes with the ring bearer in this movie, maybe my favorites. I guess they are even more than the epic battle scenes overall, because there's some. The Battle of Pelanor Fields is fantastic. My favorite part is with the Mumakils. That's just wonderful. But in terms of like smoothness and just overall quality and enjoyment, I think I like Frodo, Sam, and Gollum.
I can see that. You do feel the weight of the ring, you know, and that there's that great scene when Sam, gives the ring back, and there's that moment where he's wondering, and he's like, and Frodo takes it, but he says something like, the burden is mine, but he's not taking the ring, like, for instance, when Smeagol attacked his cousin Daegel and was like, "It's mine, my birthday present." It's not that sensibility. It's, I'm taking this ring because it will kill you. I'm already so damaged by it. Let me be the bearer of this thing that's going to damage me. I'm going to sacrifice that. I think that notion of, that quality versus simply, oh, the ring, I must have it. He's actually doing it in some ways out of a kindness to say, Sam, no, trust me, you don't want it. I'll take this. I'll take this burden. Well, you mentioned the Battle of Pelanor Fields. Obviously, great follow-up to Helm's Deep. And once the Mimakil arrive, it does remind me a lot of Hoth, right? Battle of Hoth is what I get out of it in some ways. Yeah. From Empire Strikes Back. You got the big walkers, and then they're like underneath, and there's something like Legolas would be like Luke, climbing up and destroying.
Legolas is way beyond Luke.
Yeah, it's true.
With that one scene. So Two Towers had him surfing on the shield. This one's got him riding up the back of, or jumping on the tusk, and then cutting the saddle off essentially, and riding that up, and then shooting with 3 arrows and jumping off its trunk. He's setting a precedent for upping the ante each movie.
This ups the ante. Still, it's an acceptable level of elf physics in some ways.
I had a good friend, my friend that I went to see it with in Seattle. He was like, he didn't like it at all. And I agree with you. I was like, oh, it works for me. I mean, you got to give the fans a little bit of Hollywood action credit there. A little.
Plus, there's that great little tag at the end where Gimli's like, "It still only counts as one." But yes, it is getting into the level of absurd that we'll see carried out as they elevate it into the Hobbit trilogy. Unfortunately, in my opinion, unfortunately, but here, I mean, it is funny. I had remembered this in watching it just the last couple of days. Aragorn basically goes, Legolas, and this points at the Mimakil like, you go take it out. Like he assumes, do the thing, do the elf physics that you're going to do, take out that thing that's been killing everybody. Sure. He knows, what his friend's capabilities are, obviously. But interestingly, one of our commenters, Justin Parker, brought up a good point. He was commented on the last video, and he was talking about the differences between Helm's Deep and Pelanor Fields. Oh, okay. He prefers Helm's Deep mainly because he thinks that the Oathbreakers are overpowered in Battle of Pelanor Fields. That he feels like instead of the defenders winning the day, it's like, oh, we called in these ghosts and they just killed everybody.
It's like a weed or going through weeds.
Yeah, like mowing the lawn. So that's a good point. I can see that. Once you bring in the Oathbreakers, they're just like this OP myonk thing, which they don't do in the books. They are responsible for getting the ships, but they don't come and then just they don't.
Just level
take over a Mimakil like a virus or something.
Oh, that's what it was like, right?
Like,
but they handle it very well with Aragorn releasing them. Gimli's like, "Don't do it," or "No, these lads are tough in a fight." Something like that. And being the honorable guy, he releases them. That was totally the right call, and I'm very glad that they left at that point.
I also do like, though, that there is that question because it probably comes up in people's minds. I think it even came up in my mind when I was watching it, like, oh, you could just hold on to him. But it does not work in the context of Aragorn making, they swore to his ancestor, broke the vow. He comes back and says, look, if you follow up on your vow, I'll release you. For him to then break it, it's ridiculous. I'm no better than you. Yeah,
this would be way worse than Denethor getting smacked in the face.
Yeah. He's no longer a good guy at that point.
Right.
He's a guy in a video game. It's like, oh wait, I can use this cheat code. So he's not cheat code Aragorn. We've already talked about some of the quotes we like, but we'd like Gondor calls for aid, and Rohan will answer, "Mustard over here." Another great line is the ride now, ride for ruin, and the world's ending.
And I love
that's a great
Eowyn's
line.
Courage, Mary, courage for our friends, because it looks very scary at that moment when Mary's looking down at the host there at the gates of Gondor. Oh my goodness.
Gandalf with the board is set, the pieces are moving. To the Oathbreakers, what say you? What say you?
I love that, right?
We
use a lot of these. Oh, One of my favorites that we've used, like in our when we play Age of Empires, I have to mention is Aragorn's speech before the Black Gate. A time may come, you know, blah blah blah. But it is not this day. This day we fight. I use that a lot. This day we fight.
Which I've got a good analysis of that moment, actually, which I'll talk about in a second when we talk about extended scenes. And then there's a great quote that I smile every time I see it, and I did it again this last day.
I think I know.
It's now actually this actor. I was gonna say, it's a guy with only one line, and he actually has, I think, 3 lines total. He comes in a little bit later, but essentially this guy's got 1 line, and it's great.
I'm wondering.
He's the guy that goes, "It is as the Lord Denethor predicted.
Oh,
long has he foreseen this doom." Which, I mean, if you just showed up on a set one day and you're like, "All right, here's the script. Oh, what do you have to say?" You might be the guy, which you also like to quote, is the sir.
That's what I thought you were going with at first. I totally forgot about you rollers.
So that's the typical line you might say if you just showed up and you had a line or 2. But this guy got to like project this awesome line.
Long has he foreseen this doom. Great delivery.
I would love that line. I would love to say that line. It reminds me of another awesome medieval epic, Excalibur, the movie. There's this great scene in that when Merlin says, like, "Show the sword. Show the sword." And you see all the peons gathered around, and they're a bunch of extras. And there's just somebody, you don't even see them. They're off screen, but they got their line in, which is you just hear them, like, just shrieking, "Excalibur!" And I was like, that would be me. I'd be that guy in the background. Like, "Oh, I get my $50 for the day? Okay, and I'll just wear the thing. Oh, this is showing Excalibur? Excalibur!" So this guy's a little elevated from that, I think, because he's actually, he's got a name. They call him Irolus. It's really interesting. I looked this guy up, the character. Originally, he was going to be the character of Baragond. And Baragond is actually a fairly major character in the books. I've done a video on Baragond. You want to check that out.
But Pippin around quite a bit.
Right. He kind of introduces us to Minas Tirith. Also, he's the guy that essentially saves Faramir's life. And in so doing, kills other guardsmen, which is a huge no-no, but he feels like it's important. I got to do it. Got to save Faramir. So anyway, there's a lot for Baragond. As it turned out, when Peter Jackson realized they kind of made the part a lot smaller, they decided, don't call this guy Baragond because he's not really that big a part. So they changed his name, and he is Irolus. But he's got this great line, which is "It is as the Lord Denethor predicted. Long has he foreseen this doom." Gandalf, foreseen and done nothing. Little dig at him at the end of it. But love that line. It's just like, you go get him, Irolus. Okay, let's talk about some of the extended scenes. Again, we watched it all with the extended stuff. And we talked about how there weren't a ton of particularly revelatory extended scenes, say in Fellowship of the Ring. By the time you get to this movie, there are some major extended scenes that I think really enhance the viewing of this particular movie. One scene that I noticed, it's not as revelatory, but I was like, oh, I'll bet you I know why they didn't keep this in. It's a scene where Éowyn is talking to Merry about the upcoming battle.
Oh yeah, right.
And he's talking about but I want to fight, but I'm just one small guy, and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about that scene. I mean,
it's not the best scene anyway, but whatever, it could have fit in. But it occurred to me, she's not wearing her helmet during that scene. This is after she's disguised herself.
Sure.
And she's in public. Too. Everyone, I mean, obviously the Rohirrim would know who she is. Right. What's she doing here? Oh, that's interesting. Because obviously later there's this huge moment when Éomer sees her. He thinks dead on the battlefield. He didn't even know she was supposed to be there. And he's like, oh, and he's just crying and,
he freaks
despondent.
out. Yeah.
But if he'd have known she was there in the first place, it might have. Anyway, so I could see they probably recorded that scene and they were like, kind of gives away the fact that she's supposed to be disguised.
It doesn't add that much either.
So they got rid of that scene. Some scenes that are pretty awesome. Right off the bat, you've got Saruman's death scene.
Oh yeah.
Again, this is not from the book. Saruman does die in the books, but he dies at the very end. But they wanted to pay a little homage to Saruman dying without having to go back to the Shire. Which the Scouring of the Shire, I did a video on that too, if you want to check that out. But that's a scene that they decided, you know what, we got enough endings, let's just wrap it up.
I'm glad they did. A lot of people were unhappy with that. Like, it's supposed to be trash.
Yeah, I mean, I can make the case for it in that it's kind of that end of that hero's journey. You come back to where you started, but they did enough of that I'm good with it. I was fine with what they did. But so Saruman's death though is pretty impactful, and it's a cool scene, and we get a lot of cool dialogue there. And I
like Theoden's reaction throughout the whole thing. That's my highlight for it.
Yeah, so Saruman, because it does this in the books as well. He's manipulative. He uses words, and so he insults people in the perfect ways. And one of his insults there for Theoden, he's talking about how, your people just lay with dogs, and the horse lords, you guys are nothing. Without Aragorn around, you guys would be nothing. He's basically saying what Theoden is thinking, which is, I feel like I'm the second fiddle in this group a little bit, So it's really, really cool. There's a really fun scene. I did another video on it. I've done videos on all these, apparently. But the Crossroads of the Fallen King is what they call it.
I love that scene.
And that scene's in the book, and it's great. And you see this statue, which the head's been chopped off by orcs.
Abomination.
Yeah. And then, but there's this little wreath of flowers, and the sunlight hits it, and then the sunlight goes away. So it's like hopeful, but not hopeful.
Right out of the movie. Oh, that was the book.
Yeah. So really well done. It's a fun scene, and I would have liked to have, but you get it. They were probably cutting like mad. You would think if they saw this cut, they're like, we can't have a 4-hour movie. Just can't do it. So, so a lot of this got cut for time. Whereas if the movie had been, let's say, an hour and a half, and you had all this extra, they probably would have kept all this in. The Witch King's Hour, really fun scene. He shows up on the tower, and he breaks Gandalf's staff, which is a little like, whoa, okay. He got uber powerful there for a second. But that's a version of that is in the books, where there's a confrontation, and then the cock crows, and then the Rohirrim shows up, and it's really cool. So that scene's really neat, and you see him on the fell beast on the top on Minas Tirith, and you can see Gandalf is actually a little afraid, like that's really, really cool.
There are some extra battle scenes. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but there's some very good added battle scenes, especially with the Mumakil.
You got the Houses of Healing references,
where the hands of the healer, or
the hands of a healer,
or something like
that. Right.
That was a nice touch. Yeah.
And we see there the relationship between Eowyn and Faramir kind of blossoming while they're both in convalescence.
Some of my favorite new scenes are the extended scenes are with Sam and Frodo again, like their descent into Mordor down that steep ashen gravel hill, trying to hide from the oncoming company of orcs, and how they fall in with them. I love that scene. I think they do that.
And it's also that metaphor of having to become like the enemy in order to pass them by, and even the fact that they have to get in a fight in order to distract attention from them. Yeah. So it's kind of, I like that they have to bring on the trappings of their foe in order to evade them. You've got Aragorn looking into the Palantir. There is a reference to that. It's not exactly the same, but there is a reference to that in the books as well. That's
different. Yeah.
That's an interesting bit. And then the scene that I think is the most impactful scene, the one that changes the entire texture of the scenes around it, is the Mouth of Sauron. And yes, I've done a video on this too, but whatever. But in the movie, the non-extended version, they ride up to the gate starts to open, they turn around and ride back. In the extended version, obviously he rides up and they meet with the Mouth of Sauron, and they're shown Frodo's mithril shirt.
Gandalf's reaction is brilliant during that. As he's trying to keep Merry and Pippin quiet.
Yeah, they're like, Frodo, and he's like, silence.
But he looks desperate too. He looks like he's about to lose, and he's barely holding it together. Like, oh my gosh, we're in for it.
And
poor Frodo.
That scene. So then when you cut to that line you were talking about, where it's like, men of the West, this day we fight. And then we've got the bit where he says, for Frodo, right? I mean, that's a little later.
Awesome. Right, sure, yeah.
And so
it makes a lot.
So that scene is much different. The way it is in the theatrical version is we're buying Frodo time. The whole point in this is to distract the enemy so Frodo can destroy the ring. So when he says for Frodo in the theatrical version, he's like, yeah, we're probably going to die here, but we're buying time. This is for Frodo. Now, you take it in the context of the Mouth of Sauron. Oh, Frodo's dead and or captured and they have the ring. For Frodo now means we've lost. But Frodo sacrificed himself for this cause. We're gonna do the same, basically. We're gonna take his. So it's a theme that Tolkien has a lot of, and it actually is in his movie quite a bit as well. But for whatever reason, Peter Jackson decided to. It's the idea of hopeless courage, right? Courage in the face of hopelessness. That we have no chance of winning, but we're going to try to do the right thing anyway. And so I feel like that's a much more powerful emotion in that moment. But whatever, it's fine the way it is. Maybe he cut it out because Aragorn chops off Mouth of Sauron's head, which is a bit like, wait, that guy met you under treaty and you chopped. I don't know. Who knows why he cut it, but he cut it. And so it changes that tone. But just the idea of hopeless courage, I was going to mention, like, you see that expressed earlier when Theoden is meeting, his men say, like, we cannot defeat the armies of Mordor. And he's like, no, we cannot. But we will meet them in battle nonetheless. That's that sentiment, right? We can't win. It's the right thing to do. We're going to do it anyway. And so I feel like that scene, to me, is more powerful if it's for Frodo, we're all going to die, but so be it.
Yeah, you're right.
Anyway.
We got a brilliant scene again by Sam as they're going up the slopes of Mount Doom, and Frodo's pretty much exhausted, fatigued to the point of not being able to move. And Sam gives him that beautiful speech about the taste of strawberries, the feeling of grass below your feet. Frodo can't remember any of that and said, "Let's be done with it. I can't carry it for you, Mr. Frodo, but I can carry you." Brilliant. Which is I love that bit too. I mean, that's again out of the books, but the idea that like he comes up with a solution. All right, fine. I can't carry the ring. You know what I can carry? I can carry the thing carrying the ring. All right, I found a loophole. Which is great. I love the music during that. It's great instrumentation choice here, I think, by Howard Shore. The little fife playing. It's like you've got the evil background, and you've got this very, I don't know, like youthful sort of instrument playing in the background. What a great counter between like the evil nature or the evil environment of Mount Doom, and then this youthful sort of instrument, the hope of the hobbits, I guess. And
to me, it also felt a little bit like a fife and drum going to war thing as well.
And then not long after that is when Gollum shows up. That last fight is really well done. And then Frodo runs at that point into Mount Doom, ready to throw the ring away. And that whole scene is really well done. Of course, Frodo doesn't go back and attack him after Gollum's jumping around with the finger and the ring.
Here we see that's
a Hollywood moment, but it works great. I think, and I love Sam's reach. Fantastic.
Yeah, that scene is great, and the idea when he says like don't you let go or something like that. Like It's right. You could see it on Frodo's face, which is a testament to Elijah Wood's acting. He is contemplating just letting go. He's like, you know what? It's done. What am I? I'm damaged. Why don't I just drop? I'll just end it. And so in that moment when he's tempted to just end it, Sam is there to bring him back. No. Yeah. And so that's just a great, the emotion of that moment. It's more than just saving him physically. It's almost saving his psyche, saving him emotionally. In that moment, which is great.
It's similarly, I mean, in terms of emotions, I mean, there's a bad guy, the bad guy you never expect to see emotion from, but I think they show it really well when the ring finally falls into the lava, Gollum's gone, Sauron turns his eye towards the mountain, right? And then Barad-dûr starts to fall. I think they capture the emotion of fear so well in the eye as it's falling down. I thought it was brilliant.
Right, it's like flitting back and forth a little bit.
Oh my!
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, you're right. There is that. It feels like he being Sauron is desperate in that moment.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and I like how all the orcs start to run away. The troll turns and just barrels through, like, oh, the ring's gone, we're scattered. And that's mentioned in the book as well.
Another fun moment I like is that, at the end, Frodo wakes back in bed, and there's all of these greetings, and everyone's, happy. And then he makes eye contact with Sam. And that when he and Sam, like, everyone's just chaotically laughing hysterically that they're alive.
It's all in slow motion. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
But that connection of, like, this shared experience they had, it doesn't require them to talk about it. Like, they're just like, we endured this unendurable thing together, and now we have this, this bond that, band of brothers, basically, kind of thing. But it's cool. It's done with it's done without words. It's just pictures, but you can see the connection between the two of them.
Oh yeah,
without them having to say.
Now, were you like me, like in the theater, going like, "Wait, is that the end? Wait,
yes.
Is that the end?
So
wait, is that the end?"
When I first saw this, the first time I saw it opening night, and interestingly, I remember this. I forgot at which time it happened, but like, let's say the third or fourth time that it faded to black.
It fades to black so much, right?
And then came back. Like, there actually was an audible laugh from the audience. It wasn't huge, but there was a little bit of like, which I'm sure isn't what Peter Jackson wanted out of that moment. But
I didn't get any laughs. I don't recall that.
I think it was a little off-putting, because you were like, oh, that feels like it's the end. Oh, no. I think it's just the fact that he faded to black. I think if he hadn't faded out and then back up as many times as he did,
he was definitely building to the epic ending, because it certainly deserved it. But yeah, the fade to black kind of threw people off.
He was giving everybody their exit, which is, again, when you've done 10 hours worth of story, you totally do that. Although when I watched it here in a couple of days, because I was expecting it, and it didn't feel as awkward as it had once upon a time. Maybe because I know what's coming, so I'm like, oh, yeah, of course. We still got to get
when we get to that last scene that was the ending, I was going like, yes, again, Sam, 3 for 3 in the movie is going to end it. Brilliant ending. Another Sam ending basically all three.
Yeah, you had to end it that way. So all the other stuff that you're doing,
so I knew it was coming. I was so happy.
Somebody actually asked us if we were on Instagram. Unfortunately, the answer is no. I do not have a Dorklord account on Instagram, but
you are snag it while you can.
We are on Twitch, as it turns out. I've never mentioned this before, but I'm mentioning it now. Basically, Theron and I are on Twitch once a week, Thursday nights, about 8 o'clock Eastern time. We use Twitch, admittedly, we just use it mainly to record our sessions. But if you want to hear us talk silly stuff while playing fantasy role-playing games, you feel free to come join us. Right now we're about to finish a game we've been playing for over a year.
Might be able to catch one episode next Thursday, baby.
It is Divinity Original Sin 2, a game which has a lot of inspiration from Tolkien. I'm playing a character who's an elf and a dwarf and whatever. Anyway, but if you are interested in that, whatever, it's Dorklord Prime. It's got the same little icon, the 20-sided die icon. You would double our subscribers.
Yeah, we don't advertise.
Okay. But anyway, there you go. We're on Twitch. That said, I think that covers our Return of the King wrap-up. Good sir.
Covers our Lord of the Rings wrap-up. Anything to say about Lord of the Rings overall? Gosh, I wasn't prepared for that, but
so great to come back and revisit
trilogy ever,
this.
I guess. Yep. I mean, yeah, greatest trilogy ever.
So many, we talk about all the choices Peter Jackson made along the course of this giant journey, and he made so many right choices. Again, he's just, boy, well done, well executed by people who really love the material and were in a position to be competent enough to display it in movie form. So we are very lucky that we got that kind of a visual representation of these books. So awesome for that. Tippy cap. And so we're going to be covering the Hobbit Trilogy next. So Theron,
let's do it.
Unexpected Journey. We got to go watch that again, and we'll come back and talk about that. So
oh yeah.
Anyway, thank you everybody. We appreciate it. Thank you, Theron. And
pleasure.
We'll talk to you guys next time. Bye everybody.